we have a multiracial country. And if we are not careful, there will be racial flare-ups. And you look at most of the countries with a multiracial population, they are never peaceful. Even Northern Ireland, it took you such a long time to stop the war in Northern Ireland.
Talking of peace, you did worry about the stability of your country, didn't you? That's why you were very strong, very tough with Islamist extremism inside Malaysia.
Yes, it is necessary.
Well, I just wonder in that case then, why before, again, just before you left office in October '03, why did you tell the Islamic Summit Conference that, and I'm quoting again a very famous speech, it's a little bit long, but 1.3 billion Muslims cannot be defeated by a few million Jews, you said. We're actually very strong. The Europeans killed 6 million Jews out of 12 million, but today the Jews rule this world by proxy. They get others to fight and die for them. You went on to say, but the Jews have become arrogant, and arrogant people, like angry people, will make mistakes, and there may be a window of opportunity for us.
I'm stating facts. I'm willing to say that again and again that this is what has happened.
Anti-Semitic and racist, that was called by many governments and people around the world.
This idea about anti-Semitism is created by the Jews themselves. We cannot say anything. In fact, journalists have been arrested for saying something against the Holocaust and jailed for 3 years. Where is the freedom of press?
So those words I quoted, in your view, are not anti-Semitic?
No, they are not anti-Semitic. I'm just quoting facts. The fact is that the United States obeys what Israel wants it to do.
You call them facts. Let's leave that aside for a moment. I'm trying to understand your logic. Here you are, a man who says that your own country is potentially destabilized by Islamic extremism, and then you go out in an Islamic conference and you use words which could have been used by Osama bin Laden.
There's no contradiction. No contradiction at all.
Well, forgive me, but I see a major contradiction.
I don't want Islamic terrorism any more than I want Jewish attacks against Israel or American bombs on Baghdad. It is not incompatible.
Do you feel confident that people still listen to your message?
Well, I wouldn't be able to say.
In Malaysia, people
Why
say...
should people worry about me?
In Malaysia, people say, and I'm talking about the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition, it is time for you to be quiet.
Why should I be quiet? You mean to say when they are doing something that is wrong to my country, and I should not say anything? I would be irresponsible if I were to do that.
Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, thank you very much for being on Hard Talk.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
But today the Jews rule this world by proxy. They get others to fight and die for them. They invented socialism, communism, human rights and democracy so that persecuting them would appear to be wrong, so they may enjoy equal rights with others. With these, they have now gained control of the most powerful countries, and they, this tiny community, have become a world power.
He called the world a mess. The hopes of the post-Cold War era dashed. Malaysia's Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad opened the 116-nation summit with a candid, often scathing assessment of the world today.
The world now lives in fear. We are afraid of everything. We are afraid of flying, afraid of certain countries, afraid of bearded Asian men, afraid of the shoes airline passengers wear.
Mr. Mahathir defended Muslims, tracing the roots of terrorism to injustice and inequality, dubbing both Palestinian and Israeli acts of aggression as acts of terror, going against what he called double standards of the West.
These blatant double standards is what infuriates Muslims, infuriates them to the extent of launching their own terror attacks. If Iraq is linked to the Al-Qaeda, is it not more logical to link the persecution and oppression of the Palestinians with September 11th? I thank you.
With representatives of Iran, Iraq, and North Korea in his audience, many here agreed. To combat that, Mr. Mahathir proposed NAM leaders come together with a united stand, demanding war be outlawed to be enforced by the United Nations.
War must therefore be made illegal. The enforcement of this must be by multilateral forces under the control of the United Nations. No single nation should be allowed to police the world, least of all to decide what action to take when.
There were many apparent jabs at the United States, although not once in his speech did Mr. Mahathir mention the U.S.
There are many races in this world. I've said nasty things about them. They never accuse me of being anti-this and anti-that. But the Israelis are special. You cannot even mention that in the Holocaust, it's not 6 million, but 4 million who were victims of the Holocaust.
In 1970, in your book, The Malay Dilemma, you said the Jews are not merely hook-nosed, but understand money instinctively. These kinds of things are not acceptable, are they, Prime Minister?
Well, lots of people say nasty things about us, Malays, lady, and all kinds of things, but I didn't take it up against them. That is an opinion, and I gave my opinion of things.
Do you stand by those sorts of opinions?
Well, if you are going to be truthful, the problem in the Middle East began with the creation of the State of Israel. That is the whole truth. But I cannot say that. Why is it that you cannot...
But why say hook-nosed and good with money? It's not necessary,
they
is
are
it?
hook-nosed.
Right. Well, I'm sure that many people would really find that very offensive.
Many people call the Malays fat-nosed. We did not object. We didn't go to war for that. When I last spoke here in 2003, I lamented how the world had lost its way. I bemoaned the fact that small countries continued to be at the mercy of the powerful. I argued the need for the developing world to push for reform, to enhance capacity building and diversify the economy. We need to maintain control of our own destinies. But today, 15 years later, the world has not changed very much. If at all, the world is far worse than 15 years ago. Madam President, in Myanmar, Muslims in Rakhine State are being murdered, their homes torched, and millions of refugees had been forced to flee, to drown in the high seas, to live in makeshift huts without water or food, without the most primitive sanitation. Yet, the authorities of Myanmar, including a Nobel Peace Laureate, deny that this is happening. The world does not care even when Israel breaks international laws, seizing ships carrying medicine, food, and building materials in international waters. The Palestinians fired ineffective rockets which hurt no one. Massive retaliations were mounted by Israel, rocketing and bombing hospitals, schools, and other buildings, killing innocent civilians, including school children and hospital patients, and more. The world reward Israel deliberately provoking Palestine by recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Malaysian palm oil is labeled as dangerous to health, and the estates of these palm oil trees are destroying the habitat of animals. Food products of the rich declare that they are palm oil free. Now palm diesel are also condemned because they are decimating virgin jungles. These caring people forget that their boycott is depriving hundreds of thousands of people from jobs and a decent life. We in Malaysia, we care for the environment. Some 48% of our country remains virgin jungle. Can our detractors claim the same for their own countries? But I would like to refer to the need for reform in this organization. 5 countries, on the basis of their victories in wars fought 70 years ago, cannot claim to have a right to hold the world to ransom forever. After 15 years, and at 93, I returned to this podium with the heavy task of bringing the voice and hopes of the new Malaysia to the world stage. The people of Malaysia, proud of their recent democratic achievements, have high hopes that around the world we will see peace, progress, and prosperity.
Thank you for your support. God bless you. You are standing for a lot of countries. Thank you. And this is good speech. Thank you. Bless you. Well, can I? What is it? Stupid. Oh. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think we should go to the root of this matter. People don't just get angry and do horrible things unless there is some reason. What they see is that the governments of Muslim countries have not been able to do anything about their problem, particularly with their problem over Israel, for example. So people tend to take the law into their own hands. As in modern society, we know about NGOs, non-government organizations. Non-government organizations are formed simply because they feel the government was not doing the things that they think should be done. And I think there is a lot of frustration in the Muslim world. Some are very extreme, some are moderate, but there is still a sense of frustration over their inability to resolve their problem.
What do you mean by the problem with Israel?
Well, this was Palestine before. It was a mandated...
So it's justifiable for IS to do what it wants because Israel exists?
No, it's not justifiable at all. It's a pent-up frustration that is resulting in all this violence, not only with...
What could be done? You can't abolish the state of Israel or wipe it out, can you?
Well, Israel is no longer Israel. It's occupied the whole of Palestine. You should at least move out all those settlements there. I went to Palestine. I found that I was being checked, not by Palestinians, but by the Israelis.
So you feel that if Israel returned to the 1967 borders, for example, that that would put an end to IS terrorism?
I think the Arabs generally agree to a two-state solution. I think that should be the way.
And if that happened, do you believe that that would stop the Islamic State, which after all is at the moment attacking on Muslim lands?
I know it is very unfortunate. It is not part of the teachings of Islam, but it is an expression of their frustration over something that they find themselves unable to resolve because they are up against very powerful nations.
I mean, there are those who would say that the root of IS certainly is the failure of the Arab Spring to establish proper democracy.
That contributes, yes. But the main thing is because there is a feeling that Muslims generally are being oppressed, their countries have been invaded, hundreds of thousands of their people have been bombed and killed. So how do they react to this?
What about the implementation of attitudes towards women or towards homosexuals or towards minorities, which, frankly, according to the tenets of the United Nations, for example, are unacceptable?
There are some which are unacceptable in their practices, but you must remember that other people have other values, other cultures. We have to learn how to tolerate. At one time, all the English women were covered up right to the toe.
But if it comes to a choice, where do you want your country, Malaysia, to be?
We are
on the side of Western values or on the side of...
No, we are not making any choices about Western or Eastern. We have our own set of values. Some of them are derived perhaps from Western sources. Some are from our own original beliefs and understandings.
Dr. Mahathir, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Imposed on Israeli swimmers taking part in the World's Para-Swimming Championships. Do you think it's legitimate to penalise individual Israeli citizens who may also be critical of the regime in this way?
Well, many countries today are seeing outsiders coming to their country and not very happy about it. They are overthrowing their governments because their government allowed immigrants to come in. So a country has a right to keep its borders closed to certain people. That's why borders are there. But in Malaysia, we have had no diplomatic relation with Israel at all. And we don't think that that they should come to our country because we have no relations with them. And we feel that they were doing a lot of wrong things, but getting away with it because nobody dares to say anything against them.
But I suppose my question was, you may think that true of the Israeli state and the government of Israel, but is it fair to penalise the individual Israeli citizens from taking part in this championship?
Well, it is not fair to call me anti-Semitic. They should call other people anti-Semitic. I'm not anti-Semitic. The Arabs are all Semitic people.
Well, I did want to come on to that point. You've previously called and defended yourself in calling the Jewish people hooked nose and saying that they have an instinctive sense of money. Statements like that are anti-Semitic. But my question is, why do you oppose the actions of the Israeli government, not with criticisms of those actions themselves, but with racist anti-Semitic remarks like those targeted at the Jewish people?
I can understand this. We talk about freedom of speech, and yet you cannot say anything against Israel, against the Jews. Why is that so? If we are free to say what we like, we can say that we are something that will be regarded as anti-Semitic by the Jews. That is their right to hold such opinion of me. It is my right to tell them also that they have been doing a lot of wrong things.
But that in fact wasn't the point of the question. The point of the question was, these are remarks targeted at individual Jews, not the Israeli government. So why don't you oppose the Israeli government's actions directly instead of attacking with these remarks the Jewish people themselves?
Well, it seems that most of them support the stand taken by Netanyahu against the Arabs. So when I say only the Zionists, people do not understand. What they do understand is the word Yahudi or Jews. That is what they understand. If I take action against this team, cricket team, it's not wrong because, for example, Europe wants to declare palm oil as poisonous. Why do you hurt
the poor farmer in Malaysia because you dislike the government?
I think the essence of the question was different, and I'll return to it again. It was that you can criticise the actions of the Israeli government without criticising, in this kind of anti-Semitic way, the Jewish people themselves. And do you regret targeting the Jewish people themselves, not the Israeli government, in these cases?
Well, we can't do very much about the Israeli government. They are very powerful. So we don't say anything about the Israeli government, but we don't have to show friendship towards them. If they want to come to our country, we have borders which we got to allow only people whom we like to come to Malaysia. But the people who have done a lot of wrong things, if we consider them as unfit to visit Malaysia, that is our right.
But then, even if what you believe you are saying to be true, why do you think these reactionary racist politics is the way to finding a road to the two-state solution that you so desire?
How's that?
So your policy is in support of the two-state solution, but why do you think these kind of remarks help achieve that goal instead of finding some kind of constructive way of building that solution?
I don't know about constructive way. This is a government that doesn't care about the opinions of others. That's why they keep on committing war crimes all the time. So what I say is what I have a right to say. But if they don't like it, they can say they don't like it. I don't care.
But it's, with all due respect, it's not about caring. It's about creating a climate of politics that isn't anti-Semitic or racist. And do you think that these kind of statements aid that process or hinder the process of achieving a solution?
Or achieving?
A solution.
A solution should be, should go down to finding out the reasons for the behavior of the Jews and of the Arabs. This did not happen 70 years ago, did not happen until you create the state of Israel. You took Arab land and gave to Israel, and the Arabs were expelled from Palestine. Is that right? But the people supported. I am surprised that reasonable Democrats keep on supporting the act of seizure of foreign land to create a nation for somebody.
I think on that point it would be a good time to open up the floor to audience questions. I'll take the hand at the very far back.
Thank you, Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad. I'm from Australia. My question is, how do you see Australia and Malaysia cooperating in the future on the bilateral and the multilateral level?
Well, we consider Australia as a friendly country. Of course, like all countries, sometimes they say things which are not palatable to us, and sometimes we say things which are not palatable to them. I mean, while you are friends, sometimes you have a need to tell a friend that you have done something wrong. If you tolerate everything that somebody does because he is a friend, then you are no friend. So we tell Australia that because they decided to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, that will only cause a lot of people to get very angry, and some of them might become terrorists because of that. That's what I told the Prime Minister. It's up to him to do what he likes, of course. He has a right. But what I think will happen is that you are causing a lot of people to feel very angry, and they are frustrated, and when they cannot do anything, they go and blow themselves up in your country. That's what will happen. Saya ditanya oleh pemberita, apa sebab kita tak bagi orang Israel ni datang berlumba di Malaysia? Saya kata, dia datang daripada negeri penyangga. Kami tak suka penyangga. Kami baru saja buang seorang penyangga. Jadi macam mana nak terima negara penyangga? Dia kata yang salah tu kerajaan,
Israel, bukan orang itu. Tapi kerajaan Israel kita tak boleh buat apa. Dia dilindungi oleh Amerika. Yang kita boleh buat, tahan tak bagi masuk orang Israel ke Malaysia. Salahkah? Oh, dia kata salah. Tapi Trump kata, Presiden Amerika kata, orang Islam daripada 5 buah negara tak boleh masuk negara dia. Kalau Trump boleh buat, pasal apa saya tak boleh buat? Yang lain-lain tak samalah saya dengan Trump. Itulah ceritanya.